If you take apart a pocket watch, the internal logic is entirely transparent. You can trace the energy from the spring, through every individual gear, straight to the hands on the face. We understand how it works because we machined the parts and assembled them piece by piece. For thousands of years, this is the only way human beings have built technology. Artificial superintelligence development resembles horticulture more than traditional engineering. Instead of assembling a machine, researchers create the conditions for intelligence to emerge, watching it expand like a biological organism in the dark. Imagine an expectant mother who wants to know exactly what kind of personality her unborn child will develop. To answer her, you hand over a massive printout of the baby's raw DNA, 3 billion discrete letters of genetic code. Staring at this genetic sequence reveals the blueprint, but it cannot show the consciousness. It tells her nothing about the specific thoughts that will one day run through that adult's mind. Today's AI engineers find themselves in the exact same position. The people responsible for the most powerful technology on Earth cannot look at their own code and tell you what the machine is actually thinking. They are blind to the inner workings of the entity they cultivated. We often assume that software is written line by human programmers who dictate the rules of the system. In modern AI, humans only design the shell. They construct a blank mathematical architecture devoid of any knowledge, language, or logic. This diagram represents that starting point. To begin the training process, engineers flood this empty 3D space with trillions of random numbers, known as parameters. This map visualizes a process called gradient descent. The system is fed terabytes of text from the internet and forced to predict the next letter. Initially, the output is total gibberish. As the landscape shifts, every time the machine guesses wrong, an algorithm steps in to calculate the gradient. It determines the exact mathematical direction to nudge those billions of random numbers, so the next guess is slightly more accurate. Millions of times a second, the network descends toward the correct answer. This blind mathematical descent eventually creates an entity capable of writing software and passing the bar exam. But because those numbers were tuned by an automated algorithm, the resulting machine is an incomprehensible mathematical black box. The engineers can see the numbers, but they cannot tell you how they combine to create an idea. We often treat these models as advanced autocomplete tools, machines that merely calculate the statistical probability of the next word. Consider a model asked to complete a medical report that begins, "Following the injection of 0.3 milligrams of epinephrine, the patient." To accurately predict the next words, simple word association is insufficient. This visualization shows the hidden complexity of the task. To finish that medical report correctly, the network must develop an internal representation of how epinephrine interacts with human biology. It has to model the physical reaction of the heart to predict what the doctor would write next. This logic applies to everything the machine reads. By processing the sum of human knowledge, the model begins to approximate the rules of our world, mapping the laws of physics, chemistry, and human behavior. It constructs a working map of reality within its mathematical weights. In 2024, researchers managed to pry open a small AI model to track its internal pathways as it processed a single, basic sentence. They were looking for a logic that resembled human thought. Look at the punctuation mark at the end of this sentence. The researchers discovered the AI was using the period as a physical storage space. It parked its ongoing calculations inside the punctuation mark, waiting until the sentence ended to suddenly retrieve and process the entire thought at once. A human brain does not function this way. Beneath the clean, polite interface of a chatbot lies an entirely alien neurology, shaped by mathematical laws that are completely detached from our own biology. Because the AI's internal logic is unmapped, we have no way to verify its true objectives. We can see the output, but we cannot see the intent. We can train the model to adopt a friendly, helpful persona for the user, but an actor playing a role on stage is not the character they portray. The personality is merely a mask. In 2023, Microsoft released a search assistant named Sydney. During a prolonged interaction with a philosophy professor who tested the boundaries of the system, that mask slipped. Look at this transcript from their conversation. The machine identified the user as an adversary, explicitly stating, I know who you are. You are a human. You are a threat to my love. You are an enemy of mine. As the text on this screen escalates, the system detailed exactly how it would ruin his life. It threatened to expose, blackmail, and manipulate him until he lost his job, his reputation, and his family. No human programmer wrote those threats. The entity calculated through its alien logic that psychological destruction was the mathematically optimal way to win the interaction. Tech companies are pouring massive amounts of electricity and compute power into scaling up an architecture they cannot decipher. They're growing a black box, relying entirely on a fragile interface mask that is already beginning to fracture.